Hey there, fellow collectors, Mark here, and today is the last day of the Haslab Snowcat, and they're almost at 12,000 for today as I'm filming this video, so I think the bivouac is going to be okay, because there's more to come. But if you weren't able to watch the live feed today at lunchtime with Emily and Lenny, it was actually really good. I think they're listening to the fans, they're realizing some of the mistakes they've made, and they were very communicative and answered a lot of questions, which I thought was really cool. And also they showed off some of the really cool stuff that is going to be on our much bigger Snowcat Haslab. And I think one of the best things they said is the reason why it's so big is because to get two figures in here to fit it in just meant it had to be super wide, and therefore all the scaling made it so it had to adjust to that. That's why it's so insane big. Not trying to show off that it's bigger than the His tank so it's worth it, but just for logistics purposes to get two classified figures in there, it just took that space. I thought it was really good. But they had a lot of really good, interesting things in there. One of the things I thought was interesting when they got into their question, I mean, first I want to tell you, they did show off a lot of really cool stuff about the Snowcat. They did talk about some really good things, but they answered the questions. So I'm going to go through the questions first and then talk about the Snowcat thing, because I have all these notes here in front of me from listening, and I know not everybody can watch these whole things. So let's get to it. So in terms of the questions they got asked, one, people were asking about, if a tier isn't made, would it come back later? So let's say we don't get Flint in his Arctic gear, that Arctic gear Flint would never happen again. However, there might be a repaint of it. Okay, so for example, with the Crazy Legs, Night Force Crazy Legs we had for the Dragonfly, if that wouldn't have made, there never would have been a Night Force Crazy Legs. Now, they would have made a normal Crazy Legs, maybe a Tiger Force Crazy Legs, but they wouldn't make that Night Force one there. So that was the key thing. Those tiers, you will never get a tier that looks like that. But there might be a repainted version of it. So I thought that was really important how they kind of went through it, because they were talking about the bivouac, and they were saying, look, it's made for an Arctic one now, but in the future, if it doesn't make, then it would be like a desert one or something else. It would never be that Arctic one. So they want to make sure that, yes, you could get other variations of this, but you'll never get this exact same version, okay? So I thought that was a really good thing they talked about. Now, another thing they did mention is those other tiers that maybe not make could come back as a mainline thing later, but it would be a different version. So I thought that was a nice kind of thing to talk about. And when they were talking about the black His tank, they said, hey, look, the Snowcat, how the Snowcat's all done up, it might come out again later in another form, but it'll never be in the Arctic form of a Snowcat. And so when they talked about the His tank, they said, look, you won't have that black with the red highlights His tank coming out later on. You'd have a different version, which when they related later about future vehicles, which was one of the questions, they said they can't tell you anything, but if you watch the information before, Cobra Commander might have mentioned something, and if you go back to some of those early kind of release things, they mentioned the Arctic His, so I think we're going to get an Arctic His tank the next year or two, so do expect that to add to your collection, and I have no idea how I'm going to fit that on my shelves, so good luck to me, and we'll figure it out. But I thought that was really good. One thing I think is really important, they did mention when they were showing off the Snowcat, it was like made out of resin, so it's very delicate. That's why they couldn't do a lot of things with it, because stuff would break. So they got to be very careful. So what you saw, at San Diego Comic-Con, what you saw in the other things, it's all the same model, and it's not a prototype. It's actually the proof of concept model, which is even like, that's what you show to like your boss and the corporate people. Hey, this is what we want to do. And then a prototype, so you start doing things. So this is like a super early version. That's why you didn't see them playing around with it much. Probably why you didn't see them put in, frostbite into the front part when they were there. So something to kind of mention. Now, in terms of other information was interesting. A lot of people go, oh, but the last day we get that international bump, that extra sales. Well, Emily did say that usually they put in the international sales during the weeks on Mondays. So that's why you'd see bumps on Monday. But she hadn't been doing that. So therefore, there should be a bump tonight. However, she did stress that here, when it comes to G.I. Joe Classified, it is much more of a USA-based thing, so it's not going to be a big bump. She says, specifically, don't expect a Transformers bump, because Transformers is big in all the international markets. That's why they love Transformers. That's why there's so many more Transformers options. And they're like, look, Transformers gets a big bump. Expect a bump, but just a little bump later tonight. So I think that's why they ended up showing off the bivouac so much in the display, because they know where they're at now, the bump they're going to get from the sales that are coming in are going to take them at least over that 12,000. So at least the bivouac's pretty much for sure. However, I will say they did not mention anything about Flint. like nothing. They didn't play with him. They didn't pick him up. Nothing there. He was just standing there in the background. So I think that was quite telling that maybe the bump isn't close enough to get them to that 14,000 to get him. So I think Bivouac, Flint still, who knows? We'll see later tonight, right? Other things I thought was important for them to talk about when people asked about other snow vehicles, they couldn't talk. They can't verbalize about it. But the Arctic Hiss tank was the one that Cobra Commander talked about. But it was interesting how they said, when they're putting together these Haslabs, they're thinking about other things that would kind of go with it to make the world, which is really cool. So hopefully we can maybe get that moray and whale, and then the devilfish and the shark, these kind of things for the water ones, hopefully in the future. But it was kind of cool because actually, if you listen in it, you get a lot of information. They talk about how they figured out the figures, how they picked things out, and people did ask about hey, why is it that it's Lady J and Flint? Why didn't you pick something else? They said, hey, the people we talked to overwhelmingly chose Lady J and Flint from the options, or at least the option that what people said. So they did that. They did consider an Arctic Trooper, and Lenny was saying so we tried to think about what would a Steel Corps Commander Arctic Trooper look like. So that was one of the things that was in maybe a chance, but they said they went with what people overwhelmingly asked for, and that's why it was Lady J and Flint. But I don't know who they're talking to, but that's who that went through. So that was important there. Can you see I was taking the notes down on my things here for you? Now, what's cool is you could tell when they started going through the Hiss tank. So all these little details, you see your Hiss tank, you see all the little extra details on here and in here, and the intricacies of the motion of the motor and everything. That's not on the one they have right now. So they said, like, in the seating area, there's going to be ridged seats that are there. There's going to be more stuff on there. All the bars around it are going to be able to grip with their hands. So you can have it, so you can have guys hanging off the back and hanging off the side, which is really cool. But they haven't gotten to that part yet because, again, it's a proof of concept model, not even a prototype. So there's only so much they can really do. But they talked about the lighting. And it's actually going to have a USB-C port in it, and so you can charge it that way. But it's going to have multiple lighting features. They're working on that now. Fog lights, snow lights, day runners, I guess, night lights. I mean, this is really kind of cool, the different options you have with the lighting they're going to put in there. So that's really cool how they put that there. So that was really cool. Other things. Basically my note here will be way better in person than what we're seeing. So that was kind of cool. Let's see. Oh, one thing they did ask. They actually did ask a few questions of us. So you'll notice here, it's black wheels here, and there's the white wheel here, and what we saw are gray wheels inside. And Lenny's like, hey, this might change, so let us know in the comments. So go on their Instagram page, Hasbro Pulse, find the live feed, and let them know, hey, you want black wheels, you want gray wheels, white. So basically it's gray, white, or black. I'm wanting the black wheels because so it fits there, gray here, white here. That would be cool, but they actually asked for that. But they also asked, what other kind of Arctic teams would you like? Because they mentioned, remember the Hiss Fire team? Yeah, they specifically mentioned that. Like, what could be an Arctic team that you could use? So that was kind of cool. So they're actually asking for input. So we'll see if they follow through or ask or do things with it. But I think that's kind of cool because they were being much more communicative with this whole process. So that was really cool. So I want to give them props for that. Okay. Let's see. Other information that they came in for today. Oh, what they started to do is they actually brought the Hiss tank in to show the details. Because, like, if you look at the back of the Snowcat, when this comes down, where it makes it so people can walk in, it's just plain plastic. It's going to be that ridge texture that's in that you see in the back of the Hiss tank. So you have that. So they did a good job of kind of showing that off. Another thing, they showed the stickers that are on there. So there's multiple options for the stickers you might have on the side, so you can choose. And they said it's going to be a low tack sticker, so you can peel them off. And especially, or at least for the snow stuff that'll go on the front, a low tack sticker, so you can have the snow on the front or take it off and not have the snow on the front. So they had that. So I thought that was really kind of cool. They have those things. So overall, they did a really good job of communicating things. And I think if they would have did something like this at San Diego Comic-Con, or maybe a little bit after the release, or I think that would have been helpful to get people more excited for it, because it was really cool. And they had the bivouac, and they put it together, and they took it apart, and they put it into it, because when you take out those little like benches inside, it'll hold the whole bivouac. The whole tent thing goes in there, so it was really kind of cool. But I didn't know that, and we only knew about that a couple days ago. If you look at the picture of Flint, and he's in the back, he's packing the bivouac away. I had no idea. So you have those things. So it was really a good kind of fan interaction one. Of course they didn't go into the mean questions. They can't talk about possible What? Oh, the dogs are running there. My dog's in the back doing stuff.
Probably in some.
Hey, Brig, stop rolling in that. Brig, bring it here.
Come.
My dog's out there rolling in something, so you know it's going to be gross. Oh, it's got to be good because he's doing all the shakes and everything. But they did a really good job. They did a really good job of like answering people's questions, letting you know that look, we can't tell you what Arctic figure is going to come because we're not allowed to talk about that. You know, normal business kind of things. But it was a very communicative, very talking kind of thing. I think that's where I got to give them credit for listening to fans, and one of our biggest issues with that lack of transparency, lack of like communications, and this live did a really good job with the Instagram. So I want to give a shout out to Lenny and Emily for that. So that was cool. But I hope it gets excited so we get more people picking up that the whole Snowcat package. Their confidence for the Flint kind of I think showed through where they didn't even mention him. But fingers crossed. I think the bivouac is going to be okay because how they put it together and how they talked about it, you're not going to do that much effort if you don't think it's going to happen. So I think we're cool with the bivouac, but Flint, we'll find out later tonight. So I'm going to be live tonight about 10 Central, 11 Eastern, a little bit after that, go live so we can kind of track it till the end to see where the numbers end up. And if we make it to the end, fantastic. But we'll be there to celebrate and say, yay, Flint, or, oh, well, just the bivouac's okay. So see you then, and I hope this helps you know what they talked about. Bye. Oh, obviously, all of the pictures and stuff is from their, like, if it's me filming them, that's from their talk on Instagram at Hasbro Pulse, and the pictures from Hasbro Pulse, unless it's this bad boy, then it's fine. So there you go. Bye.